You think it's a bad idea, don't you?
Getting married?
Yeah.
I think it's an incredibly bad idea. I think it's an incredibly dangerous idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a dangerous idea. There's a difference between those two things. Like skydiving is a dangerous idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's a dangerous idea. It depends on how much joy you place on that thing, right? Like for me, the joy of jumping out of a plane as compared to the danger of jumping out of a plane precludes me from jumping out of planes. Maybe I'm missing out on something. That's okay. I'll live with it. There's lots of cool stuff to do. I haven't gotten bored yet. Marriage is kind of the same thing. Like, I think marriage is, again, like, because turn around the question, which is, we know, facts, marriage is overwhelmingly unsuccessful. It is way more dangerous than skydiving. Yes, you die from the skydiving, but the chances of a catastrophic skydiving incident is like 0.0003, and one where you die is 0.00001. It's like very limited, the chances of dying from skydiving. Whereas the chances of divorce, again, 56% divorce rate. How many stay together who are unhappy and they just stay together because they don't give up half their stuff or for religious reasons or whatever? This is a technology with an unbelievably bad failure rate.
Do more people die from marriage or skydiving?
Well, I think more people wish they were dead from marriage than skydiving. I think most people's sense of self, many people's sense of self dies as part of an unhappy marriage. Like, it's not a question of will you die. It's that you're alive and not living your life in a way that's enjoyable or in a way that's authentic to who you are. And I think a lot of people are doing that as a function of the choice that they made of marriage. And again, I'm not saying don't get married. But what I'm saying is, when someone says, I'm getting married, why is it impolite to say, why? Why? You're about to do something incredibly dangerous that fails so much of the time. Why not just say, why? I'm not saying, why would you do that? It's stupid. I'm saying, why? Because most people's answer doesn't make any sense. Well, because, I don't want to be alone. Wait, you have to get married to not be alone? Join a church group. I don't know. Join a baking squad. Join a softball team. You won't be alone. What does that mean? Well, I want to have, regular sex. Okay, I don't know that getting married is the solution to that. Like, it's not a guarantee of regular sex. Like, that's not, so if the question, first of all, you're not even allowed to ask the question why. If anything, if you don't say, oh my God, that's so great, you have intimacy issues.
People say for the kids, it's good for the kids and...
Which kids? The kids you've already had or the kids you're gonna have? You're saying we're getting married so that we can have... And by the way, again, okay, you're saying societally it's good for... I think what you're saying is it's good for a mother and a father in a household with children together, right? So the polarity of male and female. Again, I know a lot of same-sex couples that have raised very successful, happy children. So maybe you're saying a two-parent family is a good thing, that it doesn't have to be male and female. Whatever, okay, that's all true. What does a marriage license have to do with that? What does the government getting involved have to do with that?
It gives me security.
What's security? You're saying something that fails 56% of the time makes you feel like you get security? That's a really weird sense of security. If I said to you, I've got an airbag in my car that doesn't deploy 70% of the time, would you drive around feeling safe? Or would you go like, this is a lottery I don't want to participate in. I'm just going to strap myself in and do something else because I'm not going to rely on this 30% airbag.
You wouldn't have a job.
Well, that's the main reason. I don't know. Listen, I've been saying for years that I think I have tremendous job security. And it makes me very happy on one level, and it makes me very sad at another level that I have such job security. I don't think we're getting better at this. I think we're getting worse at it. And I don't think by the time I retire, which isn't that far away, I don't think we're going to get so good at it that I'm going to be out of a job.
More and more people are getting prenups. You said to me that a lot of people contact you these days asking for you to help with prenups. One of the interesting things we were talking about before we started filming was it's really uncomfortable to turn to your partner and ask them for a prenup.
I know a lot of people say that, and I think it's a question of how you enter the conversation. Again, I guess because I get paid to talk, and I'm used to talking sometimes about difficult things with a judge or revealing things that are hard to reveal about someone and trying to make sure that they're not viewed negatively, even though they might have behaved negatively. So I think prenup, it's all about how you bring up the conversation. And my preferred entry point for a prenup when I talk to someone is every single person who gets married has a prenup. It's either written by the government or it's written by the two people who love each other more than the other 8 billion people in the world. I personally think that the two people in a marriage are better qualified to create the rule set of their marriage than politicians they don't know, especially when you consider the nature of politicians. They won a popularity contest. They managed to offend as few people as possible, and they change constantly. So you're signing up for the most legally significant thing you're ever going to do other than die, with a rule set that no one ever explains to you in advance and that can be changed by people who don't know you based on who won a popularity contest. Okay? That seems smart to you? Or did the two of you decide what the rules are going to be? And then, starting from the beginning, which is where you are if you're doing a prenup because you're about to get married, okay? Then you live your life in accordance with that rule set together. And when one of you is deviating from it or when a red flag goes up, like you go, hey, how come you're doing it that way? Remember, we have that rule set. And so I like that. I think prenups, even having a conversation about a prenup, I think is a very healthy exercise for a couple. I cannot tell you how many people since our first conversation have stopped me on the streets of New York City and said, I got into the coolest conversation with my girlfriend about prenups and marriage after I saw you and Stephen talking. I've had probably like 2 people a week say that to me. It's a very, I always say to these people, I'm like, you do weird stuff in bed. Like you're watching Diary of a CEO in bed. It's like, it's kind of, you know there's other stuff. Like I'm not great on the shower thing, but in bed, you don't, you know, I like Stephen too, but that's not the time maybe.
It is.
But I guess it is. Anytime's a good time.
Please don't.
But they know I'm not trying to hurt you. I know you broke 7 million. I don't want to screw it up. But I do think that there is something to this conversation. And I do think sometimes, like, you know, look, you're in a relationship. You've had a hard conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, it's not fun. And you kind of go like, how are we ever going to get out of this? Is this how it's going to be now? Like, we have this feeling and it's like awkward and it's weird. And then you make it through it. And then the next morning you wake up and maybe things are still a little weird or something, but like, oh yeah. And then I like to believe that then there's this feeling of like, hey, we did that thing. Like that thing was a little weird. It was a little hard. We lost the plot, but then we got it back and we're still here.
Look at us.
Yeah, look at us. Like, yay, go us, you know? I think there's real value in that. I think that, again, the hard thing to do and the right thing to do are usually the same thing. It's hard to talk about when this ends.
It's actually the thing I'm proud of most in my relationship is exactly what you just described there. I'm not proud of our relationship being perfect because it's not. I'm proud of how imperfect it is and how we continually resolve the conflict without coming out the other side resenting each other. We come out the other side proud of each other. We're like, you know that meme where I think it was the Hot Ones meme where they're like, look at us, who would have thought?
Yeah.
And that's like the thing that my girlfriend turns to me and says continually is, I'm so proud of how much shit we've got through. Yeah. Because she refers to it like the roots have got even longer. And going back to your conversation about prenups, it reminds me of what we were talking about before we started recording, this idea that people don't want to confront it because you tried to get a stand at a wedding convention as a divorce lawyer.
Yeah. So I want to say one thing about what you said before that, because your verbiage is very interesting to me, because you said, you know, in my relationship, you know, it's not perfect, but I'm proud of X, Y, and Z. And I have to tell you, like, I don't know, that sounds pretty perfect. Like, I think that things are imperfect, like, and that's perfect. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect relationship, like, ever. And that's perfect. Like, it's perfect. Like, I genuinely believe we're perfect. Like, I think we're all flawed and we're perfect. Like, because we're authentic, we're real. So I think that's a really important, if perfection is the standard, we will all fall short. I think the reality is that we are all perfectly imperfect, and that's really beautiful. Mm-hmm. But yes, the wedding, so in the United States, I don't know in the UK, but in the United States, we have these things, they're called wedding bazaars or wedding expos or wedding fairs. And somebody came up with this, and it's a brilliant business move, which is you rent a gigantic hall or a small hall, depending on where. Some of them are done at like giant convention centers. And, you know, people who are associated with the wedding industrial complex they pay to have a booth. So there's photographers, there's bakers, and every table has like something. The photographers have different pictures. The cake people might have like little samples of cake. There's all the little grab bags and things that people give out as wedding gifts. There's, different travel things related to your honeymoon and where you might go. There's different websites for, your registry. Like there's so many wedding-related, wedding-adjacent businesses. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So I reached out to like 4 or 5 different smaller and bigger wedding expos. And I said, in sum and substance, I'd like to get a table. And they said, great, photographer, baker, what do you do? And I said, I'm a lawyer and I do divorce and family law, but it's just gonna be themed around prenups. It's not gonna be in any way negative about marriage. It's gonna be just a congratulations on your engagement. Have you talked about a prenup? And then I'll have brochures and things, and you can, make sure that they pass muster, that I don't say anything that would be offensive to anyone. I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable, any other vendors to be uncomfortable. But there's literally hundreds of vendors at this thing. So there's no reason. Not one wedding expo would rent a table to me. They refused my money. They would not take it. They would not take it. No matter how flowery I said I'd make the language, no matter how respectful to the institution of marriage I said I would be, they would not let me buy a table. They wouldn't take my money. And those tables are not cheap. It's thousands of dollars to get a table at a wedding expo. They would not take my money.
Even though almost 60% of people end in divorce. Yeah. And it's like almost an inevitability. The probability is there's going to be a conversation about how we separate.
As I've said before, every single marriage ends. It ends in death or divorce. The majority of them end in divorce. The majority of them end in divorce. Why wouldn't you allow me to have a table that just says, if you'd like to have a prenup, here. I'm not even trying to sell a prenup on you, like you're getting engaged, you need a prenup. It's just, have you talked about a prenup? And information about that prenup. They would not even let me in the room. And because it shatters the illusion. It's reality. They don't like reality. They don't see reality as what it is, which I think, by the way, is quite romantic. I think there's something very nice about talking to your partner about, you know what I'm afraid of? Losing you. I don't want to lose you to death, even though I know someday I have to. But I don't want to lose you to divorce either. But man, almost 60% of marriages end in divorce. And if we got divorced, like, what would we be? Like, I hope we wouldn't hate each other. Like, I hope I'd still love you and care about you, or I'd still want you to be well. Even if you left me, I wouldn't hate you. Like, I don't have one ex-girlfriend that I go, man, I hate that person. Like, I wish all of them joy. I hope they're all happy. Like, our chapter together ended, but I wish all of them joy.
People don't like to go into things without optimism, though. And the conversation around should we get a prenup almost sounds like, I think we're going to break up someday. So,
I think you can hear it that way, but I don't think it has to be that. I agree with you about the optimism. I think people would prefer to look at the bright side of things and to be optimistic. And I am not suggesting, like, I don't believe in fairy tales. I'm a realist. That doesn't mean I get up every day just thinking about nothing but death and divorce and how that's not, life is beautiful and life's meant to be lived. And like, what, you don't want to sit, like, I'm not going to sit at a wedding and be like, do you know how many percentage of this people are going to get divorced? I don't view it that way. I think it's wonderful. But be realistic about things. Like, I don't want to get ill, but I have a physical every year. I go to the doctor every year. Like, I like to know what's going on. I like to be a realist. I don't plan on crashing my car, but I like knowing that I have a seatbelt and an airbag. And by the way, if my seatbelt and airbag aren't working, I would like to know in advance because I'm driving as if they're going to work. If you told me, by the way, Jim, your seatbelt and your airbag aren't working, I would drive very, very, very carefully, right? So I think it's the same thing. Like, just, we can't have an honest conversation and be optimistic.
Divorce in the US is very different from divorce in the UK. And I actually learned, well, I think it is. I learned this from watching several things, but one video comes to mind from a couple of weeks ago. You'll know the case. There's a black actor who is currently posting a lot on his social media about how his wife is like chasing him down for child support.
Oh, yes. Yes, I don't remember his name. I'm bad at celebrity names.
I'm bad at celebrity
Unless I
names.
represent them.
And
But yes, I know who he is. Yes.
And he said it on a couple of shows, but he went on his Instagram and said, like, my wife, who I've broken up with, who like basically doesn't really have a job at the moment or is making some money from some Instagram work, she's got this like pack of lawyers who email me and demand to see my bank statements because I've been doing well lately. I've got a couple of new movies and stuff, and she wants to make sure she gets more money for me and the kids based on his success. And I never realized it was like that. I never realized that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's modifiable. It's modifiable. Child support, for example, is modifiable every 3 years when there's a 30% change in income up or down.
So if I have a wife and then we have 4 kids and then I break up with her, and when I break up with her, I'm making $1 million a year, and then I'm making $100 million a year,
goes up. Child support goes up.
To like what? What are the numbers?
Depends on the percentages. In New York, 1 child is 17%, 2 is 25%, 3 is 29%, and 4 is 31% of your gross income.
Of my gross income?
Your gross income, less FICA, 0.0765. So Social Security, Medicare.
If my gross income is $100 million.
So theoretically, there are caps on the combined parental income.
Everywhere.
Yes, pretty much. But judges have a tremendous amount of discretion based on a variety of factors, including things like what was the lifestyle of the children during the marriage? What are the reasonable needs of the children? Like celebrity divorces, I will tell you, there are some legitimate separate needs that the children of celebrities need. Like security, for example.
What's the biggest child support payments you've ever heard of?
Well, I mean, Diddy had, I think it was $20,000 a month for a period of time. He's kind of a well-known one, and it was very well publicized. The most I've ever had in a case is I had a client who got $65,000 a month in child support. But it covered a lot of things. It covered a portion of private school tuition. It covered a security detail. It covered, these were very, very high net worth, public figures.
What kid needs $65,000 a month?
Well, the kid doesn't get the money. The parent who has primary physical custody gets the money.
And they can do with it whatever they want.
Correct.
So they could go spend it in Vegas.
Correct.
That's not fair. You should have to provide receipts.
Well, what I've always said is, first of all, the system is complicated enough without people having to provide receipts to check the math of a person and what they're spending the child support on. Like, it's already overwhelmed enough and it's already difficult enough. Like, listen, what you're proposing would create a lot of additional work for me, so I appreciate it. But it is, from my perspective, it is a potentially very dangerous thing. What I always tell people is getting married without a prenup is a fairly risky activity. Having a child with someone is the most risky activity in relationships in terms of the amount of emotional and financial damage a person can do to you. Have a kid with them. Having a kid with somebody. They can weaponize that child. They can alienate that child. They can use that child's needs to piggyback onto financial needs. There's so much stuff a person can do to torture you if they have a kid with you. And there's so much legal wrangling and rambling to do. And what I'll tell you is I have a client who spent somewhere in the realm of $100,000 in legal fees arguing over whether Thanksgiving should begin on Wednesday and end on Sunday, or whether it would begin on Thursday morning and end on Thursday evening. Now that person's worth, $700 or $800 million. So $100,000 to them is not a lot of money. Most people, myself included, I'd just eat turkey another day. Like, it's not worth that amount of money, right, to have that argument. That's why having a kid with someone, you're opening up the door to a potentially tremendous amount of battles. Whereas if you're arguing over a $50,000 bank account and you spend $30,000 in legal fees, even if you won, you only won $20,000. If you lost significant. So it forces a certain rationality into the transaction. Whereas your time with your kids, people could attribute whatever value they want to that. I've had clients who fought over minuscule things about children that to me would be minuscule. To them were incredibly important.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.